Hello everyone and welcome to a new IK video. This is Kinkade from 49, and in this video guys I want to talk about Diego, which is this little guy here. I'm using a Fire March in my Diego. It is a 100% free to play account, and as you can see I don't even have a third builder in this account here. So I want to talk about the Fire March, the 100% free to play Fire March, and in this video I want to talk about the build that I'm using in this March. This March used to be very strong back then when I used to play this account. I was very active in this account and I used to compete using it. However, ever since I turned it into a farm account, I haven't been very active using it. I didn't have enough time to use it. This is why it fell behind compared to the other people in the server here. I think it's not even in the ranking at this point, and it is below 200 when it comes to the strongest troop power at 220. Anyway, I'm just gonna talk about the build and how to build a decent free-to-play Fire March. So for the build that I'm using, as the aura skills that I'm using Malaise to reduce the crit rate and avoid critical damage from my opponents, and I'm using Sacrifice. The reason I'm using Sacrifice in Ashoka here, because Ashoka doesn't usually deal a lot of damage. The only reason I'm using Ashoka in this March is to protect Empress Wu, because she is the main damager in this March, and since he has assist on him, he will receive lots of damage, he will lose lots of troops, so he won't even have a chance to deal damage. This is why I'm using Sacrifice on him, because it is better to boost two other immortals damage than him dealing damage. So this is why I'm using Sacrifice, and I'm also using Malaise. And the only reason also that I didn't use Gilgamesh or any other immortal instead of Ashoka is of course the elemental buffs here, because when you deploy 5 units of the same element you get a 10% troops HP, which means that your march will sustain a bit more when you're using a different element here. So this is why I'm using Ashoka, this is why I'm using Malaise and Sacrifice. For the grace skills, of course I forgot to mention Weakness, which is the most important aura that you can use for a Fire March. So Weakness reduces the resilience rate of all enemy units by 20%. And when the resilience rate is low, the chance of dealing critical damage to this opponent will be higher. So this is why I'm using Weakness in the Fire March. I believe Weakness is the most important aura that you can use for a Fire March, because combined with Empress Wu, Empress Wu counts a lot on Chase and other mage skills. Also her skills deals lots of damage, and of course you can see when you select Empress Wu, you can see that she has a lot of critical hits. Not my Empress Wu in this March of course, but usually she has a lot of critical hit compared to any other mage. So this is why also one of the reasons I'm using Weakness. For Hippolyta skills, I'm using Death Press. The only reason I'm using Death Press on Hippolyta because I have a very nice artifact which has physical attack and surge as a special attribute. This is a very nice artifact that I got from Throne of the Supreme. I don't even have this artifact in my main account. I have the same attributes as the main attributes, but for the special attribute it has Iron Fist, and Surge is of course much better. If you take a look at Hippolyta's energy regain, you can see that it has 121 energy regain, an insane amount of energy regain of course. So this is why I'm using Death Press on Hippolyta, and of course I'm using Oakengard and I'm using Resist to sustain as much damage as possible in the first 18 seconds of the battle. You can see that it reduces the physical damage by 45%, and this one here reduces the magical damage by 45%. I'm using Rage Blessing for my Fire March here, mainly because Hippolyta and Empress Wu, you can see that Empress Wu has an insane amount of energy regain, Probably one of the highest, well, what, not one, it is actually the highest energy regain for a mage, which is Empress Wu, and Hippolyta has an insane amount of energy regain as well. So increasing this by 50% in case you have the Rage Blessing at level 8 will be a huge boost for Hippolyta and Empress Wu. For Empress Wu, the skills that I'm using Toxin Nova, and I'm using Annihilation, and I'm using Chase. Mainly Toxin Nova is to proc Chase as much as possible. It has a 30% chance of causing extra damage to all enemies whenever you deal a critical damage, a magical critical damage to be specific. It used to be any kind of critical damage, however it got nerfed a while back. So this is why you need to use a critical damage, a magical skill such as Annihilation, Toxin Nova. You can also replace Annihilation for a skill such as Fire Nova. If you got to unlock a skill such as Spell Disintegrator, it will be much better than Toxin Nova. I'm using Firing Master on William because I don't want him to get controlled, because his skill is very important for my Fire March. He increases the crit rate of all my units by 20% for 6 seconds, which allows Empress Wu, of course, to deal more damage. I want to show you some reports. Maybe this one here. You can see that the main damager here is Empress Wu. She dealt 21 million damage compared to any other immortal in this march, and I wasn't even using my full build here. I wasn't using Death Breath. And you can see that Empress Wu dealt a lot of damage. Also, Ashoka didn't even get to deal any damage, and he received lots of damage because of the assist. And this is again, it's the Water March, and he has a level 6 troops, and my troops currently at level 5. Yes, it is level 5. Not sure if I have any other decent reports to show you guys. Maybe this one? No. Well, I usually don't even check my opponents. I just buy the attacks and use them right away. However, this is the build that I'm using for my 100% free to play Fire March. For the artifacts, well, I don't want to talk about artifacts in this video because it's gonna be so long. I'm gonna talk about artifacts in a different video. However, for Empress Wu, just make sure to get a crit rate artifact because it's gonna help her a lot to deal more damage. This will be all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and have a good one.